So this video is going to be about the first week of Oceptember, which is just your normal daily drawing challenge where you get a prompt every day and you have to draw something based on the prompt for a whole month, in this case, September. Since this is Oceptember or Oceptember, I get to draw something about my OCs every day, because this is definitely just about the challenge and not me just wanting to gush about my OCs, right? Right? Anyway, on to the drawings. So day one's prompt was favorite OC, and while I'd love to say that making this decision was hard because I love all of my OCs equally, there is one OC that I hands down cherish. And that is Kian Lee. He's not my first OC, nor is he really my best designed OC. In fact, I have plans to probably redesign him to some degree soon. But he's the OC I've held onto and developed for the longest time. So I love him. He's my baby boy. He also happens to be my guilty pleasure Gary Steele OC that I shove into every single fandom that I can. So, for example, like Naruto, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, like everything. Drawing him was not very hard since he is my favorite OC, so I draw him a lot. But figuring out what to do with the background was kind of hard. Originally, I was just planning on doing no background since I'm not a background person, but I decided that it's probably a good idea to add something. It was feeling really empty, so I just added a desk in post, and that's the background. On to day 2 with the prompt Unexpectedly Loved OC. In this case, it's not just one OC, but 3. From left to right, there are Yaman, Keigo, and Yoko. So these 3, while I did make them years ago in 2017, I redesigned them recently, last week, and it was the best idea I've had in a really long time. I absolutely love their dynamic, and it got me really excited for this story, which features in one of my hopefully working stories that right now is pending title of Masked Hunters. And they're not the main characters. They're probably just going to be side characters, maybe a Team Rocket sort of existence where they kind of just get in the way of the main characters occasionally, but overall they're not really harmful in any way. Keigo, my favorite, is a bit of an ass. If any of you have ever watched The Umbrella Academy, he is very much like 5 in personality. Yoko is very much a big troll, loves teasing her brothers so much teasing. And Yaman is he is mom friend. He is mom brother, I suppose, in a way. And that's kind of weird. He just is trying his best to keep this family together, regardless of however much Yoko and Keigo like to fight, because boy howdy do they. Next, it's time for day 3 with the prompt Least Loved OC. And for this one, I chose one of my OCs named Lucas Pepper. There's nothing wrong with him per se, other than maybe him being a bit bland. All he really is currently is a bartender with no relevant plot or backstory to any of my currently working stories. So there's really nothing much going for him other than his design, which I actually rather like. But I just associate him with a not particularly fun time of my life. And I just hope that sometime soon I'll end up redesigning him. Not too much, since like I said, I do really like his design overall. but with some sprucing up, hopefully, and a new backstory with some actual backstory, I'll be able to like him. But currently, he symbolizes something that I'd rather not dwell on, if I'm gonna be honest. So that's why he's my least loved currently. Can you tell I struggled on the background? Because I struggled on that background. Like I said in the day one picture prompt, I am not a background person of any sort. So drawing this background was just as bad as every other background I draw, which means it was pretty bad. Next is day 4 with the prompt initial designs. And there was only one OC I could have done this prompt with, and that was Elias. Since Elias was currently the main character of one of the stories I'm working on with the pending title of Lone Angel, could only originally be described as your stereotypical weeaboo child's first OC, Catboy Angel boy, because he was my I'll Know Exorcist, also known as Blue Exorcist, fan OC. And to describe the whole process of how he evolved from Catboy to now, just tired boy, as I like to call him, it would be way too complicated and way too long. Basically, it's just I had the Catboy OC, which was originally named Haru in traditional weeaboo OC fashion. And I dropped him for a while, didn't really use him at all. Picked him up again to try and continue with this fan OC, and I developed him and I realized that I didn't like it, so I gave him a completely original story, and I completely scrapped that original story and made a new one, and that is the current one we are going with. Day 5 had the prompt about the OC's world. Since it's the story I've been thinking about the most recently, I'll be talking about the world of my Masked Hunters story. Basically the one where Keigo, Yoko, and Yaman live. In this world, people who wear masks are monster hunters that hunt monsters for a living, and this particular job is the most sought after since it comes with very good pay and a lot of respect. However, it's also very dangerous, which means that it is a fairly elite position to have. Most other people just end up becoming normal soldiers or otherwise just small town militias. And those who become hunters are those who are connected to their focus, which is basically some sort of item that allows them to conduct their elemental magics. And if you are competent with those elemental magics, you are able to become a monster hunter. For now, that's all I have on this story, since it's still very much a work in progress. And all I can say right now is that the two main characters who I'm drawing in this picture are Kitsune and Razu, and they're the highest elite of the hunters in the region. So they're the most well-respected, the most well-paid of all of the hunters, and right behind them are Yoko, Yaman, and Keigo. They're second place, basically. They have a lot of respect, but people will still trust Kitsune and Razu more than they'll trust my trio, which is unfortunate for them. The next prompt is day 6's, which was regrets. And I don't regret very much from my stories since I'm still working on them all. But there is definitely one pretty big regret I have, which is replacing one of my other OCs, Kristen, with Elias as my main character for that Lone Angel story. Since I love Kristen, he is my baby boy, he is my son, he was my first completely original OC. And I loved this story because it was cute and it was dumb and it was really romantic and it was adorable. But it also kind of had no real plot, which is kind of bad for a story. Stories tend to kind of need plots. And his just didn't have one. I was struggling with it a lot. So I ended up bringing in Elias originally as a side character, and slowly he became a co-main character with Kristen, before eventually just taking over the story, becoming the actual main character, and Kristen ended up getting punted to the sidelines as a not important at all side character that just kind of fills in the space in the background. Which makes me really sad because, like I said, I like Kristen. I like his design, I like his story, I like his dynamics. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And in this case, what I had to do was shunt him to the wayside. Finally, the last prompt for this week, day 7's, was obscure fact. And while the fact that Kian is not my oldest OC isn't the most obscure, who my true oldest, so therefore my first OC, is something I typically don't talk about. Since he is a disgustingly weeaboo fan OC for Hunter x Hunter. His name was Kage Shinkai, which in true weeaboo OC fashion was a mishmash of 2 words, I think Shinkai was. I believe it was supposed to be deep and ocean or deep and sea. And Kage is your traditional shadow name, so that's that. He was very much a Gary Stu. He had, I believe, some shadow manipulation Nen powers. He was mysterious, tragic backstory. Overall, no personality, just there to be with Gon and Killua throughout their existence in the Hunter x Hunter world. He is also the first OC that I ever put into a fanfiction, and that fanfiction no longer exists on the internet because it was bad and I had to get rid of it because it was some hot garbage as most first stories are. So it doesn't exist anymore. He doesn't really exist anymore. Although it is nice to know that apparently my style of fashion for some of these characters has not changed, because he looks like a mishmash of 3 of my other characters, which I might say something about the way I design OCs, but it's okay. I like the way they look. So yeah, that was the last day of Oceptember for this week. Hope you enjoyed. To find the full images, you can go to my Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram, since I post all those pictures onto those platforms. So, see you all next week.